I bought my home about 8 years ago. It was on the edge of a suburban neighborhood, the kind of place where manicured lawns met undeveloped land. My lot was larger than most because the back portion sloped into an open, grassy area that wasn't ideal for building but perfect for privacy. That privacy was the reason I bought it. No shared fences, no loud neighbors behind me, no constant HOA eyes watching my backyard. At least, that's what I thought. When I purchased the property, I had everything done properly. A licensed survey, clearly marked boundary lines, property records filed with the county. I even kept copies of everything in a folder in my home office because my father always told me, land disputes don't happen until they do. At the time, I laughed. Turns out, he was right. Now, technically, my home was adjacent to an HOA-controlled neighborhood. I wasn't part of the HOA. I never signed anything. I never agreed to their rules. I never paid their fees. But the HOA board acted like they owned the entire area. They were the type of HOA that loved meetings, loved rules, and especially loved telling people what to do. The HOA president at the time, let's call her Linda, made it very clear she didn't like that my land wasn't under HOA control. I could tell by the way she looked at my backyard during casual conversations. Like it offended her. Still, she never said anything directly, at least not at first. About a year after I moved in, I started noticing flyers. Coming soon, community tennis court. Improving property values. An investment in our neighborhood. I didn't think much of it. I assumed they were building it somewhere inside their development. Why would I think otherwise? Then one weekend, I went out of town for a short business trip. 3 days. That's all it took. I came home on a Sunday afternoon, pulled into my driveway, grabbed my bags, walked toward the back of my property, and froze. Because where there used to be grass and trees, there was concrete, bright green and blue paint, white boundary lines, a net stretched across the center. I stared at it in complete disbelief. My first thought was honestly, this has to be some kind of mistake. Then I walked closer and saw something that made my stomach drop. One of my old boundary stakes, the ones from the original survey, was still there, embedded into the corner of the tennis court. They hadn't even removed it. That was the moment the shock hit me full force. They didn't accidentally build close to my land. They knew exactly where my land was, and they built on it anyway. I didn't even go inside my house. I marched straight toward the HOA clubhouse. My heart was pounding. My hands were shaking. My mind was racing. Linda was there, standing with 2 other board members, smiling like they'd just completed some great achievement. When she saw me walking up, her smile faded. I didn't yell. I didn't swear. I simply said, "Why is there a tennis court on my property?" She blinked, then laughed. Actually laughed. "Oh, that?" she said casually. "That's a community improvement." I told her again, slower, "It's on my land." Her expression changed instantly. Annoyance, dismissal, entitlement. "Well," she said, crossing her arms, "that land wasn't being used." I stared at her. "You don't get to decide that," I replied. She rolled her eyes. "We assumed you wouldn't mind. It benefits everyone." That was the first time anger replaced shock. Linda waved her hand like she was brushing off a child's complaint. "If it's really an issue," she said, "you can take it up at the next board meeting." I asked who approved the construction. She said proudly, "The HOA board." I asked if they had surveyed the land. She hesitated, then said, "We looked at the maps." I asked if they had permission. She didn't answer. That silence told me everything. That night, I pulled out my property documents, survey maps, legal descriptions, county records. I didn't need to double-check, but I did anyway. The tennis court wasn't just partially on my land. More than half of it was. They didn't just trespass. They built permanent infrastructure, concrete, fencing, lighting, without permission, without a lease, without compensation, and without a shred of remorse. At the board meeting the following week, I presented my evidence. Printed maps, photographs, surveyor notes. The room went quiet. No one could deny it. Finally, Linda spoke. "Well," she said, "removing it would be expensive." I replied calmly, "That sounds like a problem you created." She frowned. "Why don't we come to some kind of arrangement?" That was when the disbelief turned into cold clarity. They weren't sorry. They were looking for a way to keep using my land for free. I told them I had an idea. The room leaned in. I said, "You can keep the court, but you'll be renting my land." Linda scoffed. "We're not paying rent for land we already improved." I smiled. "You built something on my property without permission. That's not an improvement. That's a liability. Silence. Then I dropped the number. 100 per game. Laughter erupted. Linda shook her head. That's ridiculous. I nodded. Then tear it out. They didn't tear it out. They didn't pay. They continued using the court. So I started documenting every game, every match, every hour of use. I installed a small legal camera on my own property. Not hidden, not secret. Perfectly visible. And every time someone stepped onto that court, the meter started running. After 1 month, I sent the HOA an invoice. It wasn't emotional. It wasn't threatening. It was professional. Date, time, number of players, amount due, total, 8,400. Linda called me immediately, screaming, threatening, accusing me of extortion. I calmly said, "You're free to stop using my land at any time." She hung up. The HOA lawyer contacted me next. He tried intimidation, then negotiation, then dismissal. I responded with one sentence: remove the court or pay the bill. They didn't believe I'd enforce it, so I filed a lien. That lien stopped them from refinancing HOA assets. That's when panic set in. Board meetings turned heated. Residents demanded answers. People started asking why they were being charged special assessments. And suddenly, the tennis court didn't feel like such a good idea. 3 months later, I got a call. Linda's voice was different. Quiet, controlled. She said, "We're ready to settle." The HOA paid all back charges, legal fees, survey costs, removal costs, and signed a contract acknowledging trespass. The tennis court was removed. The land was restored, and I kept the money. Linda resigned. The HOA restructured, and no one ever questioned my property lines again. Sometimes I walk my land and look at the grass where the court once stood, and I smile, because entitlement only works until it meets someone who knows their rights. If there's one thing I learned from this experience, it's this: just because someone acts like they own everything doesn't mean they do. And sometimes, the best revenge isn't anger. It's an invoice,